Day 12, Yosemite National Park to Death Valley National Park. Spent another great night being lulled to sleep by the rushing water right next to me. Those nice folks in the campsite next to me fed me a nice breakfast. I thought about staying to see what they would feed me for lunch, but it was time to get on to Yosemite. I begin my tour of Yosemite. This place is truly a wonder. Just to watch the water free-falling through the air was spectacular. Great scenery throughout, including a historic swinging bridge. I had lunch at the Yosemite Lodge, and when I came back, someone had placed a fresh long-stem rose on Scarface. I don't know why. I guess they thought Scarface was pretty. I then headed east through Yosemite Park. Great views continued. Once I got above 8,000 feet, I started to see patches of snow. It had all been cleared off the road, so there was really no problem other than it was starting to get kind of cool. There were several climbers scaling the mountain cliffs. You have to look pretty close, but honest, they're there. This is the best zoom I was able to do. You will have to look very closely, but there are climbers on the mountainside wall scaling a pure vertical cliff. They are circled in red. I visited with one of the climbers, at ground level of course, and I told him how scary his hobby looked to me. He told me that he thought going around riding on two wheels was more dangerous. I guess each to their own danger. I continued to gain altitude, and by the time I got to about 10,000 feet, there was a lot more snow and I was getting cold. I had to stop and bundle up with some winter gear. As I left Yosemite, spectacular views continued in all directions. I had descended down the mountains and headed south. Temps were now more moderate, so now I had to stop and shed all the extra layers I had just put on. I continued on to Death Valley. I thought about stopping at a motel, but decided, to have the full experience, one needs to actually camp in Death Valley. As I entered Death Valley, there was a long, narrow, two-lane, twisty road descending into the valley at a very steep decline. It was late dusk, and it was starting to get too dark to take pictures, but I did get this one beautiful scenery picture. You'll just have to believe me, all the other views were fantastic. Although I am now in Death Valley, I was still about 35 miles from the national park entrance, and it was now getting very dark. I attempted to cut into the desert to make me a campsite, but the sand proved to be very difficult to deal with, and the fact that it was pitch dark, I gave up on that idea. I found a private campground nearby, and for $7.50 it was well worth it. I was the only tent camper there, so I had the whole place to myself. Speaking of being a tent camper, I usually pitch a tent to protect me from rain or the morning dew. Well, in Death Valley, I figured that either of these events was pretty unlikely. So I just put out my sleeping bag in the open, and I went to sleep under the stars.